This is Waves Lesson 4, and this is Uses of the Electromagnetic Spectrum, Part 1. So the objectives of this video are to recall and explain the different uses of radio waves, microwaves, and infrared radiation, which we also call IR. Remember to pause at any point if you wish to make any notes. Let's get started. So radio waves. Radio and television obviously both use radio waves. And if you remember from the previous lesson, radio waves are part of the electromagnetic spectrum. They've got the longest wavelength, the least energy, and the lowest frequency. Radio waves have the longest wavelengths of the electromagnetic spectrum, typically 100 meters. There's a picture of a radio transmitter, so they give off radio waves. And let's look at some uses. So some uses of radio waves. So we've got radio and television communication. We've got medicine, so we've got MRI scanners. And we also use them for astronomy and to see the centre of our galaxy. So there's some radio telescopes. It's got an MRI scanner and a brain scan. And radio telescopes beneath that. So if you want to make some notes on those. Okay, let's move on. So this is quite interesting, radio waves and the ionosphere. So the ionosphere is a layer of gas in the upper atmosphere that reflects radio waves of frequencies less than about 30 megahertz or 30 million hertz. So this is a way, or the way, that radio waves can, travel around the Earth, so that you can hear radio stations, from other countries that are very far away. So radio waves can be reflected off the bottom of the ionosphere, enabling them to travel great distances. The ionosphere is stronger in summer than winter, and so distant radio stations can be received better in the summer. And before the advent of satellites, using the ionosphere was one of the main ways of communication or communicating around the world. Obviously nowadays we just use satellites to, for mobile phones, ping text messages, the internet usage, straight to the satellite, and wherever we need it to go. Okay, let's move on. So microwaves. So two uses of microwaves, typically microwave ovens and the use of mobile phones. So microwaves are part of the EM spectrum. So relatively shorter than radio waves. They've got slightly more energy and a higher frequency. So they typically have wavelengths of 10 centimeters. There's a microwave transmitter or receiver used for a mobile phone network. You may have seen these. Okay, so let's look at some uses of microwaves. So microwaves are arguably one of the more useful parts of the spectrum, so we use them for cooking in the microwave ovens. Now, the microwave ovens, obviously the microwaves don't work because they're super energetic, because they're not much more energetic than radio waves. But they cook food really quickly, and it's because they're the perfect frequency to interact with water molecules, and what they do is they make water molecules vibrate very quickly. So the water in the food or any liquids that you put in a microwave will vibrate very quickly, build up lots of thermal energy, at a very high rate. So they're also used for mobile phone communication, satellite television, and again, actually all parts of the EM spectrum are used for this, but microwaves are used in astronomy. So, and then for microwaves, finding the origin of the universe. So if you do separate science at GCSE, you will learn about the cosmic microwave background radiation. Okay, let's move on. Remember to pause at any point if you need to. So let's have a look at dangers of microwaves. So microwaves can cause internal heating of body tissue, and that's linked to the way that they interact with water molecules and cook food very quickly. Obviously, the human body is made of water, or mostly water. So microwave ovens actually contain a metal shielding to prevent microwaves from leaking out. So they're absorbed before they can get out into the kitchen. So it's not a good idea whilst the microwave is in operation to, stare through the plastic / glass from have a look how your food looks. I'd advise you to turn the microwave off before doing that. And some people believed, or they did believe initially, that overuse of mobile phones can lead to brain damage, although there isn't really any concrete evidence of that at all. So it's not really a concern. It used to be at the advent of mobile phone communication many years ago, but at present, it's not really discussed much anymore. Okay, let's move on to infrared radiation. So here's an infrared image, or thermal image. So red's warmer and blue would be a colder region. And here's a heater that gives off infrared radiation. So despite appearances, this heater is giving off mostly invisible infrared radiation. You can't see infrared radiation with the human eye. So let's look at where infrared is on the spectrum. So radio waves, microwaves, infrared. So infrared is more energetic, and it has a shorter wavelength and a higher frequency. So infrared waves have wavelengths of typically a millionth of a meter, or 1 micrometer. They're emitted by all objects, and the hotter the object, the more infrared radiation is emitted. So human beings are warm, so they will emit infrared radiation. But obviously things like the heaters, the heater that was on the previous page, will give off even more infrared radiation as it's hotter. Okay, let's move on. So some of the uses of infrared. So we've got infrared waves. Sorry, my PowerPoint bugged out a bit then. Infrared waves are used to cook food. It's quite a lot of uses actually. Remote controls, in communication systems using optical fibers, to detect intruders in burglar alarms, in night sights, and in astronomy to see behind gas clouds. So yeah, quite useful. There might be a few in there that you weren't aware of, but obviously you can be asked about this in your exam, so it's a good idea to read this and make sure you've got some notes on it and make sure you learn it. Anyway, let's consolidate what we've picked up, or hopefully picked up from this video. So I'm going to give you a closed exercise, a word fill. So you can write this out if you wish, or you can write 1 to 7 and just put the keywords in the right place. If you want to have a go at this without the keywords, please pause it now. If you're struggling and want the keywords, I'm going to put them on in a second. I'm going to do that now. And then I'll take you through the answers. So infrared radiation has a longer wavelength than visible light and is emitted by all objects. The higher the temperature of an object, the greater the amount of IR, or infrared radiation, emitted. Microwaves have wavelengths of a few centimeters and are used for cooking and communication. Radio waves are the longest wavelengths, but the lowest frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum. Radio waves are used to study the centre of our galaxy. Hopefully that went okay and you picked some things up there. So next lesson we'll look at the second half of the electromagnetic spectrum in more detail and look at the uses. Alright, so thanks for watching and I'll speak to you soon.